Sorry I had to miss last week. It was just totally crazy last week. Both me and Teresa were doing priority 6 trainings. And so that was a little awkward. Please share that letter. Okay, yes. Okay, so I'll put that letter in the Google Drive. All right, which I think you guys have access to that. It was in the Zoom reminder emails, and we'll go ahead and put that in the chat. I recently uploaded some sample letters of commitment for both EOC and Talent Search memorandums, MOUs as well. So you might want to check that out, and I will put that letter up there. I'll create a new folder that says letters, and you can check it out there, okay? I'm sure someone else is going to need that. And it's probably because, right? I don't know if you want to share, but I'm guessing, Connie, that's because they either don't have enough need, they're too far out. The reality is maybe they never gave you enough students. And of course, we want to kind of sugarcoat and be very diplomatic about the way we stress certain things. So that letter, it's just a template. You might want to highlight some things, or it could be a specific reason. Oh, well, there you go. They won't let us in to recruit or see students. Okay, so, right. I'm guessing, Connie, that school probably shows need. And so looks good on paper. So again, hopefully you have enough target schools that are official so that if you bless one and let one go, you haven't fallen, you haven't lost too many of your original target schools. Some folks might be in a situation, Connie, that if they only had 2 target schools to begin with, they may be stuck still keeping them on board because they don't want to risk losing prior experience points if they bless them and let them go. So Teresa, I think that might be a situation that I don't know if bringing on a new school would help. Or, if you have enough, like we had 17 target schools at one point, losing one school or blessing them, letting them go wouldn't impact us. But if you're down to 2 schools, I'm thinking, Teresa, they might have to consider keeping that school, even if they don't intend to, when it's all said and done, to actually serve any of those students if they have enough at the other school.
Yeah, I agree. Definitely, if it's down to 2 schools, I would consider adding one if at all possible, just so that I have enough students to serve. Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, that's what I worry about when we get, it's a fine line. I'm always about, in a perfect talent search world, I would just have a couple of target schools that had
Hmm.
thousands of
Hmm.
students. But if something ever happened and they shut us out, then I'm kind of stuck. So I guess 3 now is my perfect mixture, because then we have
Yeah,
a little bit of a chance in case we need to bless someone and let them go. She goes, I'm good. I'm at 100% funded to serve. Okay, great. So again, um,
perfect,
they're
perfect.
going to look at the total number of schools, though. Remember on your APR when they listed the official target schools, if one of them goes away and you don't include them in the next grant, are you still serving substantially the same target schools? Okay, substantially the same. So that's been kind of no official percentage, but we try to say at least more than half, right? Like more than half is safe. Maybe 75% of your original number would be really safe. So that's all I'm saying, that if you have 2 to begin with, if you lose one, even if you have enough that you can get at the other school, that's 50%. That's a big change in your number of target schools. So just check that out. You were able to add them. Okay, so you got that covered. So now you're just
Perfect.
gracefully trying to be, just in case it comes back to haunt you, right? Because it's always, right, Teresa, the Boys and Girls Club is always our fault. If something happened at the schools, if y'all didn't put it on your calendar, no one told us, and we're like, okay,
Right.
yes, I know it's so sorry that it was our fault. So yeah, you want to make sure you CYA and get that letter. So I'll get you something if anyone else does not have a letter, or I'm sure you want to gracefully bow out, maybe, or thinking about it. Take that letter and tweak it as much as it needs to be, and still being diplomatic about it, right? Okay, so sharing the results here, we have most of our people here for talent search. We have some for EOC and some for both. All right, y'all, great questions so far. Anybody else have something they want to talk about? Teresa and I'll just keep this conversation going. and see if anyone comes up with anything. Check out, I also can give you a tour again of the Google Drive on some recent additions we put up there. But Teresa, I don't know if you saw the latest blog posting or any of you guys out there this morning. I got something from Lourdes last week, and she was like, "Look at this executive order about AI, and in this, teaching that in the schools." And posted about it. And she and I, and I don't know if you agree with this, Teresa, that I have a feeling that this administration is going to push, AI being taught at the schools. And since they're pulling out of the schools, it's more of a ceremonial directive, and I believe another possible foundation for what the future CPPs in our competition would be. Teresa, I don't know if you want to speak about that, or maybe I'm
Yeah.
totally going
Yeah, I
crazy.
definitely agree. I definitely agree because whenever a new administration comes in, the priorities, the CPPs potentially do change.
Mhm.
So I do believe that this is a great potential. It would make so much sense for this to be a possible CPP in the future.
Okay. Yeah, I thought so too. I thought that was a really, good guess on that. So if you guys haven't checked it out yet, go to if you please become a member of NEC for free if you're not already a member, and check out the blog posting. We just posted it this morning. It's talking about navigating the future, and has a link to the executive order. But I think it's going to be perfect timing as to what could be the foundation for our future competitive preference priorities. Gives you a little bit of information in case you're new to the game, what competitive CPPs are, what they were for the last competition, and then the impact of the executive order on future CPPs, and some strategies you may want to start to consider, and also some action steps, just to kind of, so that you're not completely, what is this? I had no idea. You could say, well, I kind of had an idea. If they're running, this is appropriate timing, I think, if they want to have something ready to put on a program application or RFP to come out, in September, early October. This still gives them time to work on those CPPs and see what they're going to do. And again, I have the timing of it just makes me think this is right for something that could be regarding the CPPs. So that's on the website. So let me see. Let me stop sharing there, and let me go back to, okay, some cute questions. Okay, someone had said something about on the chat, but I'll repeat it here. Will we still need to mention online services even though COVID is pretty much over? I think you should. I think online services, specifically in EOC, um, I think those need to stay around. It's been very beneficial for us here at NEC to work with clients virtually. And from what I've heard from our clients, it's another, way to provide your services, right? Because students are super busy, adults are busy, EOC, even some of our seniors, it's hard to catch up with them. So I truly believe it's a benefit to include it, to mention it, and not because of COVID, but because how efficient it is and how I'm able to record, and I can also actually track and verify that I met with somebody. There's so many tools and Teams and Google Meets and also in Zoom that can verify that we met the visit, in addition to documenting it, um, and having another avenue to communicate. So I think it's a big benefit. I think you should talk about it in your delivery, your plan to deliver services, and mention it. Mention that all your services are, or the majority, or those services that you offer to 12th graders if you're in talent search, or to adults, very convenient to meet with them. Also, you want to talk about perhaps expanding or having extended hours, not every day, but on certain days, or maybe certain days of the week or of the month, where you are available virtually to meet with clients, so that you make things more accessible to them. I think that's a big, big, big plus. Um, let's see here. And thank you for putting that there, Donna. Let's see. Okay, and so there was a question there. I don't know if you want to take that question, Teresa.
Okay. All right. So this question is, if you do not see a school on your APR, but they were included in your last grant writing, do they still count in your numbers? Um, the answer is yes. Yes, they do still count. Because I'm not sure why they would not be listed, but and I've never experienced that, but they still would count towards your numbers because it is written in your proposal that's one of your target schools.
Mhm. So if you do not see a school in your APR, but they were included in your last grant, okay, well, yes, but then they should have been okay. So on your APR online, that should be the official listing of what the department has on file as to what schools are official target schools, which should match whenever y'all submitted the proposal, the program profile page. Whoever filled that out, when that was filled out and submitted, they, on their end, somebody plugged in and said, okay, these are the 6 target schools, these are the 6 target schools. So those are the official target schools, but a lot of us work with non-target schools that are in the target area. And those students that I serve, the students that are in the target schools, plus in the non-target schools that may not be officially listed, but those schools are in the target area and those individuals are eligible, then anybody that attends those target schools and those non-target schools that are not mentioned count toward my 500, for example, if I'm serving 500 or 1,000. Okay. But sometimes, Teresa, in Fort Worth, some of the schools like Diamond Hill
Hmm.
Jarvis was
Hmm.
listed as an official target school, but they didn't want to give us any students because they
Right.
wouldn't let us in. So they're counted as a target school, but I don't have to have any students at that target school when it's all said and done. I mean, I can show that I
Right.
tried, but they
Right.
refuse services. So just because you have 6 target schools listed, don't think you have to have students at every single one of those 6 schools. It's whichever ones get you first, you know? You get filled up at 3, I mean, you might have wanted to, if you, in a perfect world, you can plan and leave slots open, but if someone is not biting, you can't leave those slots open. You go ahead and give it to the schools that want you, and you
Hmm.
won't be penalized if you don't have students spread across all the schools. Do you agree, Teresa?
Yeah, I definitely do. And then Kimberly had a follow-up.
Mhm.
She said they said they did. I'm assuming not. They said they did not want to participate any longer 1 year into the grant cycle. I
That's
did inform my pro. I did impro. Oh, she just added something else. I did inform my program specialist. I think she took them out. I did add one other school as a target as target to serve and got approved, but also am serving a school non-target.
And that's fine. And you
Yeah.
didn't, I mean, you could, that's okay that you did that. You didn't have to. You could have waited, and just let them stay there and not bother with them anymore. Maybe give them a letter saying, well, you could always have said, well, here's a letter stating that we're here ready to serve you all because you are listed on our
Mhm.
grant. If things should change, because sometimes principals change, administrations change, we're here for you. But in the meantime, we'll go ahead and recruit at the other schools when you're ready to come back. Um, or either way, I kept them on board mainly, honestly, because every year when we did their statistics for every 5 years, they had the the best worst data, Teresa. They were making the need work out.
Yeah.
Um, and I would still try every funding cycle, or at least once a year, to go in there because you never knew. And you know what? We were serving kids because we were the Boys and Girls Club. I could see them after school. So they're listed as being enrolled at the target schools. But here you bring up another point, how the school says, no, you can't come and see us. Well, I guess because we were the club and we had after school services, we were like, okay, not a problem. We
Hmm.
can see him
Yep.
after school. You can see him after school,
Right.
when school gets out. Teresa, we saw a majority. Remember
Yep.
at East Side? That's where you saw
Yep.
all of your kids.
Exactly.
So think about it that way. Just because they tell you no, I get it. I get it. But if that school shows the need, or you're in a situation where you can't give them up, otherwise you might lose your points, prior experience points, because you're changing drastically. From going from 2 to 1 is a big deal. You may lose your prior experience points. Well, then I got to keep them. They're still showing need. They're telling me no. Okay, you know what? We'll go around them. We'll go around them and meet with them after school or on evenings or weekends. I mean, I'm just letting you know. I mean, if you have enough where you don't have to, you have enough of a situation where you have more than enough target schools, so be it. I guess I'm not sure if they'll count against me since they're not. No, they won't count against you. You can always work with other non-target schools in the target area. I would just, director to director, make sure that you don't end up at a lot of non-target schools in addition to your target schools, because logistically it becomes a headache. And then you have your project advisors, instead of being assigned to 2 schools, you tell them, oh, actually you have 8 schools. And you're like, wait a minute, why are we so spread apart with just a handful of students at each school? So you have to be careful about that, logistically, management wise, being a stress on the advisors, having to deal with so many administrations, yourself as well. But it doesn't hurt your APR. It does not hurt your APR. Okay. I will ask if they want to participate in grant writing, as I may need to. Yeah, go ahead and ask. Okay. So let's see if we have any other questions. So great questions, y'all there. It's that time where you need to, you know, in all these decisions, should I, break up with a school or add another school? They're not letting us see students. I get that. But you want to first have your data collected, statistics, so you can, it's kind of like looking at spreadsheet of accounts, and you could say, yeah, you know what, they're not wanting us, and we'll be okay if we bless them and let them go, because their data wasn't showing that much need anyway. And the other schools we're looking at are showing more need, right? So you want to be able to have that sort of information, besides immediately, possibly, I'm the first one to tell you, don't work with anybody that doesn't want to work with you, right? But at the same time, if there's a situation where there's not enough target schools, can't give them up, or their data is what's going to make it happen, I need them to show the need. I can't really make those decisions with complete, certainty, without doing the data collection first, as though they were going to be included. And the same thing with any new schools, just like, breaking up with a school, don't offer or don't get another school excited about y'all, being about them being part of your grant if you haven't collected the data on them. Because it's happened to me, gotten someone all psyched out. They said, oh, we'll give you office space, we'll do all this stuff for y'all. Sounds wonderful, wonderful. And then we go to pull the data to show need, and they have no need. Now, they could be a non-target school, but I'm still, looking at my returning target schools. And I know that the definition of a target school is that they're the focus of your service area. I'm sorry, they're the focus of your identification, recruitment, and serving of students. So even if this non-target schools offer me the world, a place to stay, our office, anything we want, I can't commit to them as much as I first have to commit to my target schools. I can't treat them with the same intensity. My target schools are my best friends, whereas my non-target schools are acquaintances. I have to keep them at a lower frequency. I can't have them, I can't have the focus of non-target schools, unfortunately. Okay, let's see if we have any other questions. Here's EOC. Great, EOC. Will existing EOCs be able to decrease the total number to serve? You can always do that, but you got to lose the budget. You could downsize the number you have to serve, but right now, take your total budget, divide it by the number of participants you have to serve. That is your cost per participant. Now, think about how many you want to drop down to. Okay, if you want to drop down, go from 800 whatever to, or whatever you're at, let's say you're at 1,000, you want to go to 800, that's 200 participants. Multiply 200 times that cost per participant, and you have to take it off your budget. So you have to decrease. You want to go lower in your numbers, you can. You're going to have to decrease your budget as well. We're thinking about here for 5. Okay. Okay, so yes, you again, right now, look at your current target area. You need to make sure you make a case that you're still serving substantially the same target area. Okay. Maybe you have 12 counties, or you're decreasing from 5 to 4. Okay, so you're just giving up one county from 5 to 4 counties. You're losing a key location. It sounds to me that you're also worried that if you're going from 5 to 4 counties, that you're going to not have enough people. So that's why you're thinking about decreasing your amount to serve. Otherwise, if you went from 5 to 4 counties, okay, that's fine. Can you still get the same number? Then you wouldn't mess with it. The only thing there is you'll have to ask for less money. Am I correct on that, Teresa? Pretty sure it'll be less money.
Yes, that's correct. Yep, that's correct.
So, and wouldn't you say, Teresa, that Gear Up, I mean, EOCs are kind of like Gear Up in a way that, except that Gear Up doesn't tell you how many students you have to serve. But we found that depending on what part of the country, that I think the breaking point to just break even would be at least 1,500.
Right.
So that you could actually have enough staff. Otherwise, anything less than that, you couldn't afford the program, right?
Yeah, exactly. And that's the one thing to consider with ELC is just making sure that when you if you cut the number of students, you cut the budget, and considering whether or not you're cutting a person. I know we actually went through that, and we didn't think about it. We were in the pandemic. We just knew our numbers were too high, and it was just really, we had been struggling for a few years, but ultimately, you know, we did have to cut to like a halftime person because we still needed, with ELC, you serve so many people, so many participants that sometimes it's hard to give up that one full-time position if that's what you have to give up based on the cut of the budget.
Yeah, definitely. So you know that, so you can always decrease, but you're going to lose the money. And there is, possibility of throwing off a reader. So you want to address that. You don't want to hide the fact that you're existing. Just be for real and say that you can, justify, other than thinking that, oh, maybe it's a mistake, because they will be given, the initial instructions that say how much a grant can ask for, you know, that may or may throw them off if, they notice that, or you mention how long y'all have been around and they're like, wait a minute, that kind of thing. So don't ignore it. It's perfectly fine to address it. Okay. Thank you for that great question. The same thing with talent search, y'all. People have said, you know what, we want to reduce the number of students we serve. Can we do that? Sure can, but you're going to lose money. Can you do that? Can you afford to lose that? I'm sharing on the screen an infographic that we developed. I do have also, I believe, the Word version in case y'all think this is too busy, but just some talent search and EOC proposal writing tips for you to look at, and kind of put it in a visual here for you to see, and just to look at that. So it's available there in the Google Drive. Okay, so just wanted to share that. Let me see what else is in the Google Drive while I wait for some more questions. Let me go here and let's get here. Okay, we also have, in the Lunch and Learn, we have a folder for talent search and one for EOC. Let me make sure I'm sharing the right screen. Yes, okay, awesome. We also have a PDF that gives you an overview of the executive orders and some Department of Education clarifications that came in separately. Here's the grant writing tips. We also have some flyers about the need data services that we offer, which is not an allowable cost, but if you need help with census data or understanding it or assessing it, you can let us know. You can decide how many hours of assistance you need with reviewing the data you've collected, just to let you know, no, not enough need, or what about try this, troubleshoot. There's a flyer for that. Here's I think the PDF where you could read it without the infographic there. We also have a video about our proposal development services And we also have a Department of Ed compliance review, some key terms, phrases, and activities that you may want to check out because that may be a trigger. And some of our proposals may have some of this language. Initially, it shouldn't, because it was never about, we're always about being EOC or talent search eligible, meaning we work with low income and potential first generation college students. But just in case over the years, if it kind of changed, you might want to check out what you submitted last time. And as you're updating your narrative, to keep an eye on that. Then we do have a folder that has sample memorandums of understanding and letters of commitment. And there's a folder just for talent search. You've got some information there, a resource list, some timeline as to when you should be working on things, a sample budget, and all that good stuff. And also for EOC, we have one as well that we'll keep adding to that as we go along. Okay, and there's a technical review sheet also you might want to check out for both that and the program applications, meaning the RFPs are there. So in case you want to get a head start, I strongly recommend that you all download and look at the 2021 program application, or as old timers call it, an RFP, and start looking at those questions, the selection criteria, and start creating one document for each section, and start uploading anything and everything that you think should go under that section, and kind of use it as a place to collect that information. Don't worry if it's not formatted right now. Don't worry about formatting anything like that. Just start getting your narrative together, copy and paste what you like from before to put in the new section. But I urge you to do that budget right away for both EOC and talent search, because then you need to make these decisions. Can I reduce my numbers? And then the other thing is your data collection. You've got to go ahead and start with that data collection, because you don't want to make decisions without having that information with you. Okay, you've got to. When anyone ever asks me, well, should I get rid of this or that? I have to say, well, what's data looking at? Do you need them? Do you need their data? We want to bring on a new school. I said, well, are they showing need? Somebody asked me, oh, it's a brand new school that just opened up and they want us to work with them. And I said, that's great. They could be a non-target school, but I don't think they're going to have any, do they have a graduating class yet? No, they'll have a graduating class, in 2 years. I said, well, then you don't have any baseline for the graduation objectives, both of them, and going to college. So they're not old enough to have any baseline data for you to show need. So work with them if they're in the target area, work with their students, but they cannot be an official target school because you won't have any data for them yet. They're not old enough yet. Okay, so keep that in mind. Let's see here. Okay, let's see. What if we want to add a school that is in our target area? We'll keep assisting schools and we'll continue the same number of student participants. Can we do that? So I'm guessing, for example, you're funded to serve 1,000 or 500, doesn't matter. You want to add a school. The question is, are you going to make them an official target school, or are they going to be a non-target school? So you're going to continue to serve your target schools, and whoever is a target school, you'll have to pull data for, and that data for that target school will have to show up for each individual target school in the majority of the tables in the needs section. And each one of those target schools must show the need. You don't pull data for those schools that are going to be non-target schools. You put existing schools, okay? Do you mean existing? Do you want to add a school, an existing target? Okay. We would like to add a target school. They have need. Okay. So you want to make, so you want to add another target school. You have your target schools. You want to add another one. As long as that, can you do that? If they have need across the board, they cannot show a deficiency, like their student counselor ratio, does it show a need? Every single category has to show a need. Otherwise, don't bring them, don't have them listed as a target school unless you're okay with potentially losing points. Okay. So keep that in mind. Okay. If they show need across, sure. I mean, I would go further, Stephen, and ask, well, how many schools do you have right now? How many are you supposed to serve? Because you can do it, but as a director to director, I always, I would only add another target school if I was prepared to deal logistically with, telling everybody, look, we're going to go from 7 to 8. So that means somebody's going to have to travel to another school. Do I have the money to pay for that extra travel? Getting everyone to deal with that extra administration. Less is always more, but you know what I mean? We may have to, um, you know, maybe it's a situation where you need them. So yeah, if they have the need and it's not going to stretch your current logistics out, so be it. Now, if you tell me you already have 20 target schools, I'd say, Stephen, no, not another one, not another one. You know what I'm saying? Sharon, for EOC's data, which academic year do you suggest? I suggest the year that you have the latest available data for each comparison area. So what's the latest available academic data for your target area? Okay. And if it's county or cities, it might be a little different. But then when you compare yourself to national data, that might be at a different time frame. So your target area and everyone else entity that you want to compare yourself to, just make sure you try to get the latest available data for that area. They may not all be on the same time frame. So the latest, and you definitely don't want to make it more than 3 years old. I don't know if you want to speak to that, Teresa, with EOC. You have a lot more EOC experience than I do on that.
Um, I think you pretty much hit it. I mean, ultimately, there are going to be some data that are a little bit older, but again, you want to really focus on the most recent available. On average, at this point, you know, a lot of data may be 23, 24, but
Mhm.
you may be able to get some 24, 25 data, or even fall 24. Um, so
Yeah.
yeah, so it's a wide variety, but just trying to be try to be as consistent as possible. But the most consistent piece is getting what's most recently available. And right, of course, at least 3 years.
Yeah, yeah, not any older than 3 years old. And like I said, it may be different years. You may be able to
Yes,
get, and if it's a county or rural county, maybe the latest you have, like for census, even with the updates, could be, almost 3 years old. But then you might get something, don't expect them to all be on the same time frame. It's
correct.
very rare, right, Teresa, that everything is perfectly aligned. I will tell you, for talent search right now, we have spent our time looking a lot at 23, 24 data because we're still in the middle of 24, 25, right? And so 23, 24, for example, academic data. But then depending on when this is due, let's say it's going to be due in February of 2026. Well, then I might have an opportunity to update some things, if not everything, based on 24, 25, but I'm not going to wait. Someone asked that the last time,
Mhm.
should we wait for 24, 25? I said, oh no, go with the year in EOC and talent search academically that's already done, which should be 23, 24.
Mhm.
If you don't have it complete data, then you might have to go to 22, 23. But here's the key. If you find yourself having to go back to 22, 23 data, make sure under each table, whether you have the latest 24, 25, which would be rare to do if this is due sometime in October or late September, you want to always put as a standard thing under each table, please note this is the latest available data for each comparison area. Or and when I pull data for 22, 23, let's say for EOC, the 22, 23 for the target area, ooh, they're going to be reading this in 26. Oh no, they might think that's more than 3 years, Teresa, right? The reader's like, I'm reading this in 2026 or 22, 23. Oh, that's older than 3 years.
Yep.
Well, I'm going to put there, data of 20 and under the table 22, 23, and I'm going to put compiled or extracted on May 15th, 2025. And then put, this is the latest available, the latest available data is listed for each comparison area. So, yep, it's 22 to 23 stuff, but I pulled it just a little while ago because that's the latest. And I went
Right.
ahead and also did my disclaimer that, look, I'm
Mhm.
giving you the latest available data for each comparison area. Okay. That, that should help, because yeah, some of us, especially with EOC in the rural areas, it might be 22, 23. It might be a little older. If that's the oldest the most recent you can get, state it. Okay. Great question though. This is
Yes,
why you need
definitely.
to start pulling the data now. The budget should be done. The budget should take you an hour to do because there's no money in it. Okay, so honestly, and you should base it on what you're getting right now, because I truly believe we'll be on level funding the whole time. I don't think we're going to get an increase for 25, 26. And I don't think we're going to get an increase in the grant, Teresa. I really do not. And so I'm preparing myself as though we don't. I could be wrong and be pleasantly surprised and say, oh, guess what? Our biggest drama, Teresa, is we got to add $20,000 to the budget. Hey, I love that kind of problem.
Definitely.
Right? It's always better to add money. So do your budget. Oh, this is the other thing. You got to do it without any carryover. And that's where things get very interesting.
Mhm.
So do it without carryover, and that'll make you decide, do I need, can I afford to bring my numbers down? Can't afford to bring them down because we don't have any carryover. So the other thing is to start a spreadsheet on the collection of the data that you have to have to make so that you can make decisions. And school's about to get out. So I am, you can tell, I'm starting to get, a little, not nervous, but I'm like, I hope my clients can get access to information. I mean, Teresa, we can go to the websites. We can go to the Department of Ed for the state, higher education coordinating boards. And there's also these websites here that we put talent search data resource lists where we can go around. We don't need to go through the schools to get this data because it is public information. What I mean is there's a lot of qualitative information that needs to be asked to your counselors. Dealing with the rigorous secondary school program, a study for talent search, you can't find any reports really, or any statistics. And for EOC, it would be those issues about the from GED instructors and also workforce centers. You kind of have to get them as experts to give you quotes and qualitative information to address the question about what is the trends or what's the need for or lack of services. There's no one survey out there, as y'all know, in EOC that or a website where you can go and get that information. It's talking to people, and you don't want to wait to the last minute to try to do that. In one of the previous sessions, you mentioned a sample data survey to send to the schools. Is that in the drive somewhere? Let's see if it's here in the talent search drive. It was a student to counselor. I'm sorry, it's the a sample. What was it? A qualitative survey for counselors. I don't have it here, and I can upload it. It's way too long to send to someone. You just want to look at it and take bits and pieces and customize it. So I'll make a note to upload that. And that's the talent search survey. Okay. Teresa, you want to go ahead and answer that? Says you'd like to answer that question live. Okay. Let me know. I think she
I
typed it
couldn't I couldn't find my Zoom screen.
up. Oh, okay.
I was looking in the drive. No, I didn't want to answer. I was closing it out. I'm sorry. What you said was exactly what I found when I went in
Yeah.
there.
I'm going to
It's not
upload
there.
it.
Okay.
But let me tell you, do not send it as is and say, oh, because it's purposely has way too much to send to one poor counselor. It depends. It's like a complete, I think, over the top, and I mean that in a good way, but you all know your target schools better than we do. And maybe you can talk and get something from someone directly, or maybe you want to copy and paste some of these questions and tweak them a bit. So by all means, it's not something that, oh, I sent that to my counselor. I said, you did? Oh my God, you're never going to hear from her again. That was way too much to send them. You didn't need to send some of that. Right now, you all need to get what you can get from the state websites and some from these other websites to get the information you need. And start thinking or listing the things that you need to get from the target schools, which is kind of on that survey. So I'll upload that as soon as we log off. Promise, I will do that. Okay, let's see. Do we have any other questions? Any other EOC town search questions? Anything about the budget? Let me think here. Let me go back up here. Y'all know there's a new GEPA statement, and I will upload that as well. The survey and GEPA. Okay. Ever since I've been in TRIO, the GEPA statement has been one of those, oh, we got to do that. It's kind of annoying, but oh, we wrote one from the Boys and Girls Club that addressed GEPA. And it didn't matter what program we were applying to, we just needed one statement to have. And for the longest time, colleges and universities could have used the same GEPA statement, whether they were submitting for McNair, a Title V, a Title III, an Upward Bound. It was generic. It was just saying how the college promises to adhere to that. And now that's changed, okay? That has changed because now, and it started a couple of years ago, but this is the first time in Talent Search and EOC that we're going to go through it, is where you need to customize a GEPA statement just for Talent Search versus one for EOC, okay? And so I don't want you to be caught off guard and think that, oh, where is that statement? And then realize, wait a minute, you actually have to go online and actually like you do for some of the APR questions, you kind of type it up and you copy and paste. We don't do that a lot in Talent Search or EOC. Upward Bound does. But it no longer is a Word document that you work on or save and then upload it. You actually have to log on and write how you're going to do that in regards, or address GEPA in regards to Talent Search versus EOC. And I'm going to show you, let me see, I'm going to go into, and I will move this over because it's public, it's information out there, but I'm going to go actually into the, oh, I got out of that. I'm going to go in here and I'm going to pull up something here to share with you, which I will move over to the Lunch and Learn. And that would be, I thought I had it here, oh, Department of Ed, oh, here, new GEPA form. I will move this folder over just so you get familiar with it, okay? So again, you should see my screen. And what is it? It's the General Education Provisions Act, GEPA, in case you don't know. Okay, this is what it's going to look like when you log on to the program application in Talent Search and EOC. You don't just upload a PDF. You actually have to, these questions here, describe how your entity's existing mission, policies, or commitments ensure equitable access, participation in the proposed project or activity. So now it has to be specific to Talent Search, not just overall. What barriers may impede equitable access and participation? And then based on the barriers identified, what steps will you take to address such barriers? And what's your timeline? So there are 4 questions here. And responses are limited to 4,000 characters. So you have to work on this separately in a Word document, but then you copy and paste. Okay, let me know in the chat, or just has anyone gone through this yet? Had to deal with this version or this with another grant application? And what we've gone ahead is we've also, there's somewhere here, I believe there is, okay, so right here, here's the executive order. Here's some resources. Here's some acronyms. Here's the instructions too. And here's another way to look at this. So this is also in the, will be in the Google Drive, so you can get familiar with that. Again, you don't want to do this at the last minute and somebody be trying to pull it together, right? That's nerve-wracking. We've got the instructions. Oh, here it is, the training video. So if you click this link here, I don't know if it's gonna work. Let's check it out. Let's see if it works. I don't have one for Talent Search yet. I have one for Gear Up and I have one for SSS. And hopefully you can see this. So here, I recommend you go through and check this out. It's about 30 minutes long. Check it out, not when you're stressed out, but now, because you cannot avoid this. Any federal funding now through Department of Education has to, do this process here. Right, so that's going to be there. And then we do have a sample C campus. Let me bring up the sample Gear Up, which is pretty familiar. Gear Up, Talent Search are not the same, but here's an example. Let me bring this up. Of course, it's in Word right now, but then you would copy and paste it. So here's the question, and here's how they answered for Gear Up, the first question. And then the second question, proposed barriers. Okay. And then the third question was about what steps will you take? And so if you check this out, you can tweak a lot of it to address what you're trying to do with Talent Search or EOC. You just have to customize it and mention some of your services on campus to help with that. And then the timeline. It doesn't get scored, it has to be turned in. Right, so this will be there. We also have one for SSS, maybe for EOC, the SSS one might be more appropriate. I'm not sure, but I will make sure to put that in. This is all free resources. We just gathered them together, and I'll just go ahead and copy this whole folder. That's going to say new GEPA form right here. So that can end up being in your in the Lunch and Learn, and then you'll have access to all these resources. Okay. And I'm sure we're going to do a free webinar about it. So, look for that too. And by the way, all our free webinars are on our YouTube channel now. And you still talk about language, et cetera, being barrier. Okay, and we will make sure to address that, how you want to make sure that, well, you don't actually, that's a great question, Cindy, about because of the executive order, that there's a way to word it so that you can say that, because we've been going through that with the executive summaries we're looking at, that it's not a focus of your services. It's something that you offer, but that primarily everything's in English, but should some materials for parents in other languages, we can stress that might be offered, but it's not going to be a focus or a mandate like it was before. Okay, but great question, Cindy. And we'll talk about those. These were done prior to the executive order, so keep that in mind. Okay, so great question. So these will have to be tweaked again, and we'll probably start looking at those and make sure that those do not fall into the questionable language as well. Okay. All right, so let's see if we have anything in the chat. Okay, the YouTube channel, thank you. Okay. No problem, yeah. And again, these were all prior to the executive order, so they probably need to be tweaked if they focus on that language. And again, it's not being scored. Honestly, I don't know if they're even being read, that they do need to be completed. And just keep in mind that for those of you that have multiple TRIO programs, you're used to using one for all of the TRIO programs. No, you're going to have to tweak it for McNair, for Upward Bound, for Veterans Upward Bound, EOC Talent Search, for your Gear Up, so at least you'll have one for each, program that you can tweak from year to year, from funding cycle to funding cycle. Okay, check out our YouTube channel, y'all. We also have our videos there. Let me see. Let me go there and share that as well. Let's see here. All the Lunch and Learns, FYI, for those of you looking for the recordings for the previous week, we have them all listed here. Okay. And we also have other videos too. Policies, procedures manual, Veterans Upward Bound. We have a APR Q&A for, maybe people with Veterans Upward Bound. But we also have a compliance assessment, and we just keep all our free stuff here so you can check it out. And please subscribe, and you have the information there. Okay, so let me click that off. Let's see here. Any other questions? Well, now's your time. Now's your time to ask, and you could ask anonymously, I believe, in the Q&A. And I have notes to put the GEPA folder and also that talent search survey. Anyone have any more questions about the budget? Anyone, it's to be expected that 80 to 85% of your budget is going to end up in personnel and fringe benefit rates. So that's why you really want to make sure that you are equipped to your agency or your university can cover the difference if there is a difference. Let's say you were able to pay for staff, but you have no money for supplies or travel, for participant travel or anything like that, which is understandable without any carryover. Well, is the college or agency is going to have to cover you or mention that they're going to provide that, because it will look, a reader will see that, oh, they have no money for supplies. They have no money for computers. Even if you have existing computers, it won't click to them that, oh, you can't, we were just talking about replacing our computers that are over 5 years old, right? So that's going to have to happen. And that's kind of what they'll be thinking. And do you have money to pay for the connections to high quality tutoring? Okay, you don't have to pay for your own tutors. Can you defend, or in your plan of operation, can you say that referral to another entity or another program, why is it considered high quality? So don't forget, you need to address that. Just because you pay for your own tutors, if you can find, doesn't mean it's high quality, but you can control that a little bit more than the referrals, right? But doing your year one budget ASAP, should let you know where your gaps are going to be. And in this budget, that's just for fun up here, the formulas are plugged in. So if you look here, we've already put the formulas in. And again, don't pay too much attention to these salaries because we're just, making some stuff up. Don't say, oh my gosh, my salaries are much higher, much lower. You have to pay what you have to pay. All right, that's out of your control. So you got to plug in what you have to pay people. And then your fringe rate, this formula here is on 45%. And if you're going to use this, please try to keep the formulas in here, but modify them as needed, right? Because maybe it's different rates. Maybe your rate is 60%. And it's probably going to be somewhere in health insurance where it's not just 35%, it needs to be plugged in. Or maybe it's 40%. So tweak the formula. Don't zero the formulas, but tweak it, change the percentages so that it equals what you think your total fringe is. And if you don't know, I just take right now what has been paid out in current salaries, and what has been paid out in fringe, and which is a smaller amount, and I take the smaller amount and divide it by the larger amount. I don't care if you're not fully staffed right now. It doesn't pay. It's the percentage that has been paid out total so far. Up until the end of March, maybe you have those stats, compare the salary paid out, fringe paid out, divide the fringe by the salary, by the bigger number to get the percentage. And that's what we base it off of. Okay. It doesn't have to be perfect. You have to make sure you have enough. And if it's like 42.5, I say, let's make it 45. Because by the time this gets turned in, it's probably has jumped up. I'd rather make sure I have too much money in personal and fringe than not enough. But then I need to see where I have some other dollars so that I can at least have some supplies, some computers, maybe a little of staff travel, or I may not be able to afford it unless the college is going to cover a cost. Those discussions need to be had now. Anyone out there trying to go for new funding, you may need to, this may be where you figure out that you don't have enough money for a new grant. Okay, because the money is not covering everything unless your college or agency covers everything. Yes, none of mine. Someone said, I noticed you don't have an administrator. You mean a administrative assistant? The majority of talent search grants that we write, if unless there's the director is split with another grant or multiple grants, it's impossible to pay for an administrative assistant and still have enough money to have at least two advisors in either EOC or a talent search to show to the reader, even with a caseload of either 250 each or an EOC, what 425 each, that three people, the director and the two advisors, can pull this thing off. You add an administrative assistant, then you have to cut out a position. So guess what? The director becomes administrative assistant. Okay, they have to absorb that in order for their two full-time advisors, service providers, to do the identification recruitment. The director selects and then they serve and they have a caseload. So yes, I mean, the only way you can afford an admin is if your college pays for it or if you have been around for a while and you're split. Okay, so do the budget. It's very rare. You will never lose a point for not having an administrative assistant, but you may lose points for not having enough service providers. I
Mhm.
had a discussion with someone else, Teresa, that they wanted to put in one advisor, one director, and one full-time administrative assistant to serve 500 students. I said, that's not
Whoa.
going to fly.
Yeah. Yeah. At least we have a comment and we have one more question in the Q&A.
Sure. Okay.
So
Go ahead.
Sharon stated, my budget is pitiful, hence my many questions. And
Yep.
and so definitely we feel you, Sharon.
Yeah.
And then you have Stephen who said, if we recently purchased new computers, I'm sorry, if we recently purchased new computers, do we make note of that in the new application?
You need to let somebody know. Yes, you need to. So even in the budget section, if you put zero next to computer in the narrative, please note the project will not be utilizing funds to buy computers for staff because it was recently purchased in the last funding cycle. Okay. I always try to go ahead and put a little bit of money in there. But yeah, if
Yeah.
you're so super tight where you can't spare a penny and you just bought new computers, there you go. I mean, people say, oh, don't tell them you're existing. No, you can say that you're existing. We'll know you're existing when we read the first sentence of your abstract. The minute you tell me how many students you're spending or how much money you're asking for, I will know that you're existing.
Mhm.
We don't want to use that we're existing as a reason why we should continue, but it's completely appropriate and it's better than not, than just putting zero or not mentioning computers and the readers going, they don't have computers. What the heck? Everyone else is putting computers. Why don't they have computers? They're not supposed to compare you, but they're going to start thinking, they can't help it. And you don't have any computers. Oh, there it is in the narrative. Ah, I see. They just bought some. Okay, good to know. Good to know. Thanks for spelling that out. Someone said, I think you mentioned that there is not a specific percentage of schools that need to be the same. I guess same number of people served, but how will you know what your prior experience points will be counted versus your application being seen as a new grant instead of as a grant renewal? Okay, I mentioned that schools, from one grant cycle to the next, the number of target schools needs to stay substantially the same. And that's been interpreted by, you know what, you better at least 51% or higher. You don't want to ever go from 10 schools to 5 schools, maybe 10 to 6. And some people might not feel comfortable with that. Maybe I'll just go from 10 to 7. So 70% of my schools stayed the same, but how will you know what your prior experience points will be counted versus your application being seen as a new grant instead of as a grant renewal? Well, if you have a new grant, if you're submitting a new grant, you don't get any points at all because you don't have you haven't earned any. I'm not sure if I understand that question. If you're a grant renewal, your performance on your APR doesn't matter what schools those students go to necessarily, as long as they're target school or non-target schools, but it's your performance on your objectives. So Robin, I don't know if I've answered that correctly. You might want to email me because I don't know if I understood the question correctly. One clarifying question of if an institution currently has a grant and is applying again, is that continuation or new? Okay, when we talk to each other, in Trio or in Talent Search or in EOC, and someone says, oh, you know what? I currently have a Talent Search grant, but we're applying again to continue this one. Amongst ourselves, Teresa, we say, oh, that's continuation. But whenever we actually go to apply, we're all applying as new, correct, Teresa? It's confusing, but I've been told, no, you're going for new funding because there's
Yes,
a,
yes, that's
okay.
correct.
So it is kind of confusing. When we talk
Hmm.
off the paper, you're a continuation grant, which means you have a possibility of being able to submit with prior experience points earned. But when you get to the actual application, I forget what form it is, Teresa, and it says continuation or new, you're supposed to check new because we're all going for new funding. But the department will know because you've submitted prior APRs when it comes to prior experience. Don't think that indicating that you're going for new funding is going to make you void or not going to make you eligible for your prior experience points. So that's why it gets confusing. Okay.
Hmm. Yeah.
You're welcome. It's one of those things, yeah. And I have to think about that too, Teresa. But actually, this last time I
Yes.
had to think about it, and Lourdes showed me and says, "Oh, okay," because you know what, that crazy, and maybe it's going to change, but that form we're talking about, where you have to commit to saying you're new or continuing on that federal form, it's the same. It's the same for any funding in the Department of Ed. And some grants are considered continuation and not asking for new funding. We, though, are training grants. We will always be going for new funding, even though we're actually a continuation grant. And some are new. So that's the new people are like, oh yeah, new funding. It's us people that have been around for a while that we kind of get confused and say, wait a minute, what's going on there? I think we've got all the questions answered, I believe. Okay, so I have
Yes.
my notes. Thank you so much, Teresa. Thank you all for joining us. And what I'm going to do is upload those two items, the GEPA and the school survey of counselors. Get that uploaded. Give me a couple of hours to do that. And we'll also have this recording that will be posted on our YouTube channel. Okay, so we'll see you next week. Thanks, Teresa. Thanks, Leah. Thanks, Donna. Thanks, everyone, for joining us. I hope this was helpful. Please let us know. And we'll talk to you next week, if not before then, okay? Check out our
All right.
services out as well, okay? Thanks, Bev. Thanks, Kim. Thanks for your great questions. Leticia, good to see you again. Sarah, hey, everybody. Eileen, great. Thank you all so much. I got to go to our next meeting. Bye.